Hey y'all, welcome to a very special episode of your first year of drum lessons, Drumset edition, week 24. We are almost halfway. It's a good thing I'm running out of stuff to teach y'all. I'm mostly kidding. So, my name is Penny Larson, and I am really happy to have you with me today. Today I'm going to be vulnerable with you all. We're going to talk more about ostinatos. We talked about ostinatos last time, and I picked one ostinato, and we played a whole page full of bass drum patterns to go with this one ostinato, right? 2/16 and an eighth on the hi-hat. And then at the end of the lesson, we talked about a couple ways to apply it differently. You know, two notes on the bow of the cymbal and then the offbeat eighth note on the bell, or opening the hi-hat, or all this stuff, right? And that is an important way to work on ostinatos and increasing your vocabulary of patterns that you can play with ostinatos. But our goal is to be able to play patterns freely with ostinatos. So we can keep an ostinato pattern going, and we can read some other thing and play that along top of it. Ideally, maybe even keeping an ostinato pattern going while we play independently improvisationally. To a certain extent, you need to expand your vocabulary of every ostinato that you really want to have that level of freedom with. But to a certain extent, learning how to play with an ostinato is learning how to play with any ostinato, okay? And we talked about visualizing last week. And what I mean by that is you visualize the ostinato in your head that you want to play, and then you read some series of notes, or you think of some series of notes, and you play that against the ostinato that you're already playing. And what I meant when I said this is a very special episode of your first year of drum lessons is that I'm going to show you how that works in real time. Here is our worksheet for today. And in Wednesday's lesson, I gave you permission to not print out the worksheet from Wednesday because I felt you could probably pick up most of the things I was trying to teach you without the need for the worksheet. Today, it is exactly the opposite. I think it is imperative for you to print out this worksheet today. What's going on here is I've got two, I'm calling them bass drum melodies, okay? You can do this with any pattern of notes. I've got one that's just a couple quarter notes and an offbeat eighth note, and then I've got one that's considerably more notey, right? Some 16th notes and an eighth note rest and some offbeat 16th notes. And then I have a bunch of ostinato patterns. The snare drum is always going to be on 2 and 4, and the hi-hat part is going to change. And what I'm going to do is figure these out for you, okay? I've played this one before, little aside. This is a technique that people use a lot with a book called Syncopation. And if you don't have the book Syncopation, it's probably should be near the top of your list of books to acquire. There are some books that stand the test of time, and Syncopation is from a long time ago, and we still use it. And one of the reasons we still use it is because it has these very adaptable patterns, and people have come up with an absurd number of ways to do what we're going to do today. And this pattern is one of the patterns from that book, Syncopation, that I kind of remember. Still, it's been a while since I've read through Syncopation, so I'm going to figure this one out as we go too. And then this one I just wrote randomly. Okay, so this is an example of, I don't know. So this one I've never seen before other than literally I just wrote it down. And what we're going to do is we're going to play this bass drum pattern and we're going to run through all these ostinato patterns. And I'm going to figure them out for you. A lot of times on these videos, you know, if I have a false start or if I, you know, make a mistake or whatever, sometimes I leave them in just to kind of demonstrate, hey, even your drum teachers make mistakes. But usually I edit them out, right? Because, you know, you're busy, you want to get on with your day. Why the heck do you want to see me work something out and practice in front of you, right? So normally these videos are, I mean, they're long and I'm rambly, right? But they're as tight and concise as I feel like I can make them. Today, this is going to be a more rambly video than normal. Oh God, we are all doomed. Because I want you to see the process. I want you to see what it takes for me to add these bass drum patterns with these ostinatos. And then at the bottom, we've got a little bit of a surprise. We've got hi-hat add-ons, and we'll talk about that too. And we probably won't have time to do every last little variation on the page. With every ostinato, I might show you, hey, here's a variation we could do. Hey, here's a variation we could do. Today's lesson is one of a few lessons this year that's going to be this way. I am introducing you to this topic. Some people go their whole careers with never really worrying about developing independent ostinato skills. And that's okay. For me, I'm sort of in the middle, right? Some people make their whole bread and butter being able to do these crazy things with ostinatos. I am not one of them. Ostinatos to me are fun, but I have more fun playing in a linear, connected fashion, which we'll talk about later. Linear just means one instrument hitting at a time. And for me, it feels better to do that sort of rolling, everything's always changing creativity rather than the loop that is the ostinato. But ostinatos are super valuable. And I have a few in my back pocket that I use. One of the ones I use is the one that we're going to do first, the one that we did last week. And I put it first just so if you followed last week's printout, this should be clear. There's one rule that we're going to play with these bass drum parts. Any note that's on 2 or 4, so there's a 2, there's a 4, there's a 4, there's a 4. We're going to not play the bass drum because we're playing the snare. And for this exercise, we don't want to play the bass drum and the snare drum together. Okay, so from here on, no edits, okay? You're going to watch me do this in real time. That's very scary. So number 1, like I say, is the exercise that we did last week. 1 EN, 2 EN, 3 EN, 4 EN. And when I add this bass drum pattern, remember I'm going to take out beat 4 because I'm playing that with the snare drum. I'm going to do that with all of these examples because I've got 4 on the snare drum. So this bass drum pattern is just 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay? This one I gave you is pretty easy because I want you to start thinking about that visualization process. I gave a lot of thought about how to do today's lesson. This is the type of thing that usually I'd have a lot of feedback back and forth with the student about. And so I figured after some thought, the best way to do this is to just have you watch me work through it. Some drummers to check out who have really dived very deep into ostinato kind of stuff that come to mind. There's so many, but Terry Bozzio was one of the first to really kind of blow my mind in what ostinatos can do. Lots of Latin drum set players, Antonio Sanchez, even Neil Peart in his drum solo, in his later versions of his drum solo, added an ostinato pattern. Bass drum, hi-hat, right? Boom, chip, chip, boom, chip, chip, boom, chip, chip, boom, chip, chip. It's just a cool thing to be able to do, to have these ostinato patterns. And our first step is our right hand, just because we're so used to moving our bass drum anyway, that keeping our hands the same will give us a jumping off point. Some books you can check out are Time Functioning Patterns, which is possibly my favorite book that I've ever worked out of, by Gary Chaffee. If you don't have that book, please buy that book. Syncopation, like I said. Those are the two big ones that I would say. There's so many books that have ostinato kind of ideas. So let's play through this. All right, so number one is the pattern we did last week, and I'm just going to play my hands first, right? And now I'm going to read melody 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we'll go through these ostinato by ostinato. So now I'm going to try bass drum melody 2. And I'm going to try and just read it. We'll see if I struggle through it. I think ostinato 1 might be okay for me. Let's see. 2, 3, 4. So that wasn't too bad. Hopefully that made sense to y'all. Ostinato number 2 is just the same as number 1, but now backwards. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Let me play that for you by itself. And my plan is that the bass drum melody 1, I'm going to get through pretty quickly for almost all of them, if not all of them. And then bass drum melody number 2, for some of these, I'm going to have to figure out in front of y'all. I really love you guys. So, ostinato 2, bass drum melody number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And I lied, right? Even that one, at the beginning, I had to kind of feel my way into it. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm going to let you see that process and see how that works for me. And hopefully that will help you understand. I am looking at the ostinato pattern and remembering that and playing it, and then I'm looking at the bass drum melody. So while I'm playing that ostinato, I'm looking at the bass drum melody, and I'm thinking about how it goes with the ostinato that I'm playing, but I'm not reading them both at the same time, right? And that's the thing I'm really trying to demonstrate here. Okay, number 2 with bass drum melody 2. So right off the bat, I'm gonna have to figure this out. So that's the first beat, right? Oh, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you see that process. I almost have it. One of the reasons I wanted to do this way is because these ostinato patterns, a lot of these I play, you know, a couple times a year when I'm like doing my, hey, let's check in with ostinato patterns kind of practice, but I haven't practiced most of these in a while, and so I felt like it was really good to be able to show you, oh, I don't have all these together. If I played number 2 a few more times with melody 2, I would have it, but remember, that's not really our long-term goal. Our long-term goal is to be able to play these ostinatos and read a melody in real time. Future Sounds, I think, is the book that like really takes this to the next upper level, where you're playing an ostinato and there's a whole page of melody that you've got to play in all of these really awkward, really kind of make you work for it ways. We're like at the very intro level of that. Okay, so number 3, the ostinato is 1 E, a 2 E, right? 2, 3, 4. This one, I think, even the first bass drum melody, I'm going to have to pay attention to because that offbeat 8th note with the bass drum is between 2 hi-hat notes. So let's try melody 1, 2, 3, 4. See, I shifted back into ostinato 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play beat 2 over and over again to show my bass drum where that goes, right? So 2 E and a, 2 E and a. Okay, so now let's try the whole thing. 2, 3, 4. Almost. 2, 3, 4. And so now I'm going to slow it down a little. Okay, so something important too. You're watching me struggle kind of at the beginning, shift the ostinato pattern, oh my goodness, blah, blah, blah. But then once I get it, once I feel like, oh, okay, I have like locked this in, even if I'm still kind of holding on to the surfboard a bit, riding the wave, once I'm riding the wave, I try to keep going for a bit, right? To really check in with, all right, so what is my hi-hat doing? Where's the bass drum falling? Blah, 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 blah. Because I'm trying to give my body the experience of playing it correctly. I'm trying to hone in on where is that bass drum in relation to the hi-hat. And now that I've played the offbeat after 2, I could probably pretty easily adapt to the offbeat after 4, and maybe the offbeat after 1 and 3 as well, right? So this is partly what I was talking about with, we don't have time to work on every single variation of everything we ever want to play. And so the more dots you can connect with the things you're working on, the more that will help you in the long run. Okay, so ostinato 3, bass drum melody number 2. This is scary. So beat 1, I'm going to take this out of context without even trying it. I'm going to tell you. So I've got bass drum and hi-hat together twice, bass drum by itself, hi-hat by itself. So I'm just going to play that a few times. Slow down, to remind my students to do that all the time. On camera, it is tough to slow things down. So 2, 3, E and a, 4, E and a. I really don't want to do that second note with the hi-hat with this pattern. Did I mention I trust y'all? This is why I'm doing this in front of you. I am looking terrible because I want you to see how frustrating this process is, okay? This, for me, out of the ones that are 3/16 notes on the beat, this one is by far the most frustrating for me, okay? So but that doesn't mean it's going to be the most frustrating for you, right? But if you get frustrated, remember, frustration is the key to knowledge. When we get frustrated, if we can push through that frustration is the energy that drives us to improve. If you didn't feel frustrated, you would never be driven to improve. You'd get out of bed and you'd be like, hey, I feel good, not frustrated about anything, woohoo, right? Whereas, there's so many things that frustrate me on this instrument that I am constantly driven to want to do more on this instrument because, wow, yeah, right? Okay, I'm not getting off the hook. Number 3 with bass drum melody number 2. Let's see if I can add that offbeat bass drum after 2. So. Almost. almost. So what I'm starting to do is I'm doing that first half of the measure. And as I'm starting to use that wave analogy, as I'm starting to catch the wave, I'm letting myself speed up, but I'm trying to speed up very gradually. And when I make a mistake, I am either, if I can, slowing down and trying to get back on the wave, or stopping right away. The worst thing you want to do, something I preach to my students all the time, is when you make a mistake, you want to try to keep going, right? But the worst thing to do is to make a mistake and then repeat the mistake over and over again, right? Because then all you're doing is reinforcing a mistake, and holy moly, that's terrible. Okay, so number 3, bass drum melody 2. 2, 3, 4. Ah. Okay, I think that's about the tempo that I'm going to get this at. So now I'm going to try and work on the second half of the measure. In the second half of the measure, I have that offbeat eighth note after 4 again, and I have and on 3. So that is ooh. Okay, so I feel like I'm getting okay with my handle on the second half, so now I'm going to try to do the whole measure. Still though, what I'm doing is I am reading the top line. I am not reading where the ostinato is. I am trying to visualize the bass drum melody in the ostinato that I'm playing. Okay, so 2, 3, 4. Oh, almost had it a couple times. 2, 3, 3 E and 4 E and A little too fast when I get to the end, coming back to the beginning, so we'll slow it down a little. 3 E and 4 E and 3 E and 4 E and E and 4 E and 3 E and 4 E and 3 E and 4 E and almost. That second 16th note on the hi-hat. Okay, so another part of the learning ostinato patterns is knowing when it's time to say, okay, I've worked on this one enough and all I'm doing is running in a circle and driving myself crazy. I'll tell you, so a thing I could have done that I'm not going to do because I don't think that's the point of today's video, I could practice these in a couple days and then add these to the video. To me, that's not the point. Figuring out how these sound is actually not all that tricky. It's the coordination that I want you to see. And it's that coordination being learned in real time that I want you to see, even when I'm struggling with it, okay? Seriously, this is an act of great trust in you guys, okay? I'm the drum teacher here. I'm supposed to be perfect. So letting you see this stuff pretty raw, I love and trust you guys, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, so now I'm going to move on. I have no doubt that if I spent, a few days working on number 3, that ostinato, I can't remember ever like writing that ostinato or putting it in a tune or finding it in someone else's tune as like a repeating pattern. That would be a pretty weird ostinato. And now, because I'm saying that, I kind of want to put it somewhere. But clearly, I haven't spent much time playing that ostinato, right? And it shows as I'm trying to struggle through here. This one, interestingly enough, I have played a little bit more. So now I'm going to play E and which means on beat 2 and 4, I'm filling in that 4th 16th note, right? So I've got 2, 3, 4. Okay, so number 4 with bass drum melody, number 1, let's see if we can do that, 2, 3, 4, I see it. Oh, so there I had it and I tried to speed it up a little too soon. So let me back it down just a little bit. Okay, and that time, this is great. You're seeing all the stuff I want you to see. That time, I had played it correctly a few times and then I made a mistake. And for me, I never want to end on a mistake, right? I always want to end by choice in control of the pattern, right? So, don't try not to end on a mistake if you can, right? What I was saying earlier, try and play through your mistakes. I did that a couple times there too, right? I made a mistake and I kept going. But then get it back before you let yourself stop. Okay, so bass drum melody 2 with ostinato number 4. Hui. This one, let's try slow. So I've got 3 and then 3, and they're overlapping. It's 1 and then 2 together and then 1 by itself, right? I'm going to do that over and over again. Okay, rough, but that's the first half of the measure. Let's try the second half of the measure. 3, 3. This one's hard because there's nothing on beat 3. 3, 3. Okay, so let's try that whole measure. 3, 4, E, and oh. Okay, so this is another one that I'm gonna call. I'm like, I can see it, right? It's right there. The whole time I've been doing these for y'all, when I've hit the couple that I'm learning, struggling with, figuring out, I've been trying to draw that line, right? How much farther do I take this? Do you see what you need to see? How close am I to being able to play it really well for y'all? So this one, I think if I spent another 5 or 10 minutes on just this one, I would have. But again, I don't think the super important thing today is for you to see me play all these perfectly. I think you can figure out how they sound in your head. It's about watching my process, my mechanic. And seriously, I feel very exposed in front of you all, so I hope you appreciate it. Don't get used to this. This is not happening very often. Okay, so those were the 4 groups of 3/16 notes. Now we've got the 4 groups of 2/16 notes. And the first one, we're just going to do 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E. And so let me just play that. I'll play it 1 and 3. No, I'll just play the hands. So it's this. Okay, so the bass drum melody 1 with this, the only tricky spot is that offbeat after 2, and that's going to be by itself, right? So that's like this. Okay, so it feels really good to have one that I can just play. Okay, so now the bass drum melody number 2 with this. Let's check out the treble spots. So same thing, I'm going to do the first half of the measure and then the second half of the measure. So now I've got 2 together and then bass drum by itself and then snare. So, well, and then a 16th note space, right? So I see it. And then the second half of the measure, I'm going to have 2 on the hi-hat and then 2 on the bass drum. Right? Okay, so that whole measure, 3E and a 4E and a. Okay, so that one feels pretty natural. I guess maybe I've played this one a little bit more than some of the other ones, but so you could see how I worked my way through it, and then once I could play it, I really tried to take it up a bit in speed so that I'm sure that I'm really getting it, right? At the beginning of the lesson, I talked about how we're opening a door today, right? This is very much a lesson that you can't do this for this week and then be like, oh, I understand ostinatos, right? Maybe work on this whole sheet, but then the thing to do is pick one of these ostinato patterns and find a book that has any melody. I don't care. It could be a piano book. It could be, you know, a lead sheet, anything that has a written melody, and play that melody with your bass drum, leaving out 2 and 4 for the snare drum and whatever ostinato pattern you're playing. And then you will be starting to get that ostinato, right? And like I say, the one that I've spent the most time with is 1 and 9, which we haven't gotten to yet, and 8 to a certain extent, which we haven't gotten to yet. But that'll, and 10, of course, but we're not there yet. And that's how you'll start to really get deeper into this concept. Okay, so 6, the ostinato is just E and. So 1. So the bass drum melody 1, 2, 3, 4. And now bass drum melody 2 with number 6. So now I've got the bass drum on the first note and then hi-hat and bass drum together for 2 notes. And then that offbeat 8th note again. And then beat 3, well, let's do the first half of the measure first. And now the second half of the measure, there's nothing on beat 3, then a hi-hat by itself, and then a hi-hat and bass drum together on the and then the bass drum by itself on the So that sounds like this. 3, 3, 3, 3. 3. Three. Okay, so now let's try that whole measure, number 6, with bass drum melody number 2. That one I felt like I had a couple times and then I made a mistake, and so I wanted to not end on a mistake. So yeah, that one I have enough that I feel like you can see the pattern, but I also, if I was taking this ostinato pattern seriously, clearly I don't have that together, right? This would be a pattern I would want to work up. It's kind of like sounding words out, right? Working on ostinato patterns this way. You're kind of learning different syllables and then figuring out how to put them together. Okay. Number 7. So now I've got anda. 1. So with bass drum melody 1. Bass drum melody number 2. Let's do that same form we've been doing, first half of the measure. Okay, this one I think I pretty much got. Let's try the second half of the measure. So 3, 3, 3. Three. Okay, so let's try the whole thing. Okay, so that one I pretty much got a handle on. Again, none of these am I working to the point where I feel like, yes, score, that is now a part of my vocabulary, because that's not exactly the point of what we're doing today. Again, go through these all and play them like I am, but then pick one or two and say, okay, I'm going to spend the next 6 months just diving into this one ostinato. Okay, this concept is huge. I'm serious when I say Time Functioning Patterns by Gary Chaffee. Get that book and call me in a decade when you're done working with that, right? So this is like a lot of the things we're doing this year is kind of, hey, here's a concept. Do you like this? Work a lot on this, right? Because you won't have time to work on everything, okay? And so I really wanted to, this year has turned into it's like a sampler, right? Okay, so that was 7. Great, so we're on 8. So 8 is kind of like a 16th note shuffle. 1 EN, a 2 EN, a 3 EN, a 4. With bass drum melody 1. Okay, and now melody 2. Okay, pretty much got it. Second half of the measure. Whole thing. Okay, that's another one I'm gonna call. I could get there, but I feel like you're getting the point of this. We're approaching an hour, so I'm gonna do the last two, and then we'll talk really quickly about hi-hat add-ons, and then we'll wrap up for the day. I think 9 and 10 are going to be pretty quick. So number 9 is just offbeat eighth notes, 1, 2, 3. So that is bass drum melody 1. And bass drum melody 2. And then finally, number 10, just quarter notes, right? So with bass drum melody 1, 2, 3, 4. And then with bass drum melody 2, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so real quickly, I'm going to put the hi-hat add-ons. And I'm going to take the hi-hat add-ons work differently with all of these. So I'm going to play my right hand on my second hat, and I'm just going to play number 10 just so you can see how they work. So number 10 with hi-hat add-on number 1 is going to be my right hand and my left foot together. So with bass drum melody 1, that's and then bass drum melody 2, 2, 3, 4. So hi-hat add-on number 2, now I'm playing hi-hat on the offbeat eighth notes. And hey, what if I put my right hand back on my hi-hat, and now I've got that open hi-hat pattern. So again, number 10 with number 2 with bass drum melody 1, 2, 3, 4. And bass drum melody number 2, 2, 3, 4. That's a great example of what I mean I'm letting you see. The start of that was a little rough. So under normal circumstances, I would do that again until I could start it right. But for today's lesson, I just want you to see how these things work. And so if it's not pretty, again, I'm trusting you guys and being vulnerable. Be nice to me. So number 3, now I'm going to play eighth notes with the hi-hat with my left foot. And I'll go back to the auxiliary hat. So now I'm going to play twice as fast with my left foot. So I've got 2, 3, 4. And bass drum melody 2. This is another one I'm going to end up starting rough. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then the last hi-hat variation is just 2 and 4. So you play the hi-hat with the snare drum. And bass drum melody 1, 2, 3, 4. And bass drum melody 2, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so like I say, we're into like an hour now, and so you could see how if I ran through all of these, you're easily talking tons of practice. So what I recommend for this worksheet is go through it, PDF down below, print it out or download it on your tablet, enlarge it on your phone, look at it on your laptop, put it on your tablet, and get comfortable with these patterns, and then pick one. And comfortable, you know, even if that means just play bass drum melody number 1. Go through, see which ostinato sings to you. Maybe it'll be this weird one, da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. Who knows, right? Pick the one that you like, and then really explore it and really develop it, right? Part of the reason I wanted you to see me stumble through these today is so you could see I'm working these out, but how much easier would it be if for each of these patterns I had practiced all of these variations? I'm going to show you this pattern that I have practiced a lot of variations with, just so you can see how this concept works. And this is a samba bass drum pattern. Boom, chip, boom, boom, chip, boom, boom. Okay, so 1, 2. Let's think of it as 1 and a 2 and a 3, okay? And so I practiced this a bunch when I was a kid. Okay, so that's just an example of an ostinato pattern that I have taken time to develop, right? So you can see what is possible. To me, when I really develop an ostinato pattern, I want to be able to set it and forget it, as the thing goes, right? And what that means is I want to be able to play quarter note triplets, eighth note triplets. I want to be able to play accelerandos and decelerandos. I want to be able to play freely over that ostinato. Clearly, most of what we did today, I haven't taken the time to develop those ostinatos. Will I? Maybe. Should you? You should pick a couple. Yeah, right? That one I did at the end, we're going to start talking about that in the coming weeks. So if you're going to keep following these lessons, you're kind of going to be forced to learn that one at the very least. Okay, so, whew, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Today's lesson was more stressful for me than normal because, like I say, you're seeing a very, you're seeing my weaknesses and my foibles out front. But I hope you value seeing that process, okay? One of the things I miss a lot from my favorite drummers is not seeing them struggle, right? I wish I could see Neil Peart, throw his sticks across the room, although Neil probably never did. He's way too zen for that. Seeing Rod Morgenstein struggle with a lick, seeing Dave Weckl have to break something down and play it really slowly, right? And so hopefully you find this valuable because, like I say, this is something I wish I had seen from more of my favorite drummers when I was learning, right? Watching other drummers learn, I think, is like one of the most helpful special things you can do. Okay, deep breath. I can detense now. Seriously though, that whole middle section I'm just going to upload unedited, and so there might be a couple more pauses than normal and a couple more moments of dead space, but I want you to see the whole thing. Okay, so that's going to do it for today. I will see you next week. I hope you have a great weekend if you're in the United States. I hope you have a wonderful 4th of July. I hope you are staying safe. Please stay safe. And yeah, I will see y'all soon. Please like this video and subscribe and follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Penny Larson Drums. And I love you guys very much, and I will see you next week. Okay, love you guys. Take care. Bye.